Hello again, everybody.
Hi,
Welcome.
Julietta.
How's it going, Graciela?
It is going. I'm full of energy today because we have such an exciting guest. I'm super excited. Actually, I got to tell you, I'm excited about more than one thing, which is pretty typical of me. But I was doing some of our planning last night. I think I kind of want to tell people what we're planning. Should we tell them?
I think we can let the cat out of the bag.
A few teasers, just a few teasers. We're still cooking.
It's definitely still cooking, but it's exciting.
So enough suspense. Let's just tell them. Julietta and I are planning a goddess retreat. Yay! Fanfare.
I'm so excited about this. I know both of us have had retreats on the brain. I can't even tell. It's got to be like 5 or 6 years that I've had this itch that I need to lead retreats. And then you come together and you also want to do retreats. And so I think the podcast is the perfect platform for us to bring that to the world, to birth that into
Absolutely.
creation.
And everyone knows I love event planning, right? So I get to feed my event planning little heart. And also, we're going to go international for this one. That's our plan right now, which is also very exciting. And then honestly, just the idea of like getting away with time to think. Like if I had to pick one big, massive motivator for me personally, is I just want to have time with like-minded people where we can just sit down and be and think and do amazing things that are just about us. Not about the kids, not about the business, not about the husband, not about the life, the dogs, the kid, the whole thing, like just us. I'm really excited about that part.
Yeah, it is. Retreats are travel. And of course, there will be traveling, some sightseeing, but what I'm most excited about this is that we have experiences planned and experiences that will nourish you, that will reconnect you to yourself, and so you can remember who you are and come back from the retreat feeling fresh, excited, new, all of
right? Because I keep thinking like, oh my gosh, once you get to like a certain age and a certain, honestly, like level of success, it's like, okay, well, now what? Like I did all the things, right? Like I got the degree and I got the job and I got the thing and I made the kids and they're great and that's fine. And I've checked off all the boxes and I've traveled and I've this and I've that. And like, and what was I doing before I started all that? Like, what was it that I wanted to be? How was it that I wanted to feel? Because there's still so much more life left, right? And it's like, man, how much of myself might I have compromised along the way, right, to accomplish all of these things? And they're wonderful accomplishments, right? And we're all like super glad that we've done what we've done. But it's almost like you have to say, oh, you know what? I forgot. It is my fucking turn again. Anyway, I think it'll be really cool.
It's going to be amazing. I can't wait. And I go, and you know what? Even if it's just me and you, it'll be amazing. But I think there's going to be a bunch of women joining us on this adventure, and the adventure of remembering, reconnecting with ourselves, and just filling up our souls. Ugh, yes.
Right. And maybe a little boudoir picture in there. Maybe a little picture. Just saying. Maybe. We'll see. Stay tuned. But speaking of adventures, I want to bring on our guest, my friend, client, Fort Lauderdale icon. Love her. Stacy Ritter. Yay!
Hello, thank you. It's mutual. You know how much I love you because you make me 15 years younger. So yay.
Yeah, Stacy is aging in reverse. I'm telling you all right now, just keep an eye on her. It's very exciting.
Well, there's a portrait in a closet in my home that is not aging well. So that's the case.
That's awesome.
And that's a reference that I don't know how many people will get.
You know what? I love that it's so obscure that it's perfect. I love it. And we'll just leave that there so y'all can Google it. I think let's not tell them. So Stacy, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us what you do. Tell us what keeps you passionate about what you do. You certainly have made your avocation a lifelong mission. Tell us.
Okay, so my name is Stacy Ritter. I'm currently president and CEO of Visit Lauderdale, which is the tourism bureau for Broward County. So our job is to bring visitors to the destination to see everything there is to see and to meet all sorts of wonderful people who live here. And honestly, the bottom line is for us as well, while bringing visitors to the destination is our mission, keeping people employed is our calling. Because we know that, 3 years ago this month, we know what was going on. And when people stop visiting here, then our residents lose their jobs. They can't feed their families, they can't pay their bills, and they don't have the dignity and respect that work provides. So what we like to say is, bringing visitors is our mission, but our calling is keeping people employed. And we do a pretty good job of that, considering that we've had record tourism levels the past couple of years. And 23 seems to be on the same track. So I would encourage your listeners, I know that it is frustrating when we have clogged roads and there's a lot of traffic and you can't get into your favorite restaurant. But remember that because of that, your friends and family are able to work and take care of their families.
Yeah, what a great point. And I know that you have been passionate about public service for 100 years or so.
Don't tell everybody my age.
But it's so great to see that aspect of your passion coming into what you're doing for a living, right? Because it's not just all, it is fun and games, right? Let's face it, as they say, we do live where other people vacation. So we are lucky with that. But it is a big part of how we live here, right?
Oh, it's a huge part. We have an average a yearly temperature of 78 degrees. In some places in the world, and even in this country, it's still snowing, and we're already, in the middle of April. So while we have some issues, last week was, we had a massive rainstorm last week. We're getting everything is open. Restaurants are open, hotels are open, attractions are open, retail's open. There are unfortunately people who have lost everything, which is really hard to wrap your head around in 2023. And it's always the people who can least afford losing everything. So the community's coming together and providing shelter and food and clothing. But we're open for business again. And the good news is that it's a very resilient community. When you live in a place where 6 months out of the year you're under hurricane season, while we don't get them very often, and we're very fortunate about that, we are resilient. We do bounce back, and it's because I think that we have 2 million people who live here, who many of whom came from other countries, and they had to learn how to readjust when they moved here and how to integrate their culture in everyone else's culture. And I think that we've done an incredible job of that here in this destination. There are 170 nations represented in the 2 million people who live here. They speak 147 languages in their households.
Wow.
That's the world,
Yeah.
and I know how corny this sounds. We are the world. I know it's a song way back in the 80s. But we really are the world. And when you come here and you visit here, you see all sorts of things that you're not going to see at home. So if you only want to see people who look like you, don't come here. Go someplace else. Because you're going to experience something that's completely different, whether it's food, it's culture, it's attractions, whatever it is. You're going to see a place that, I've called this place home since 1974, and I can tell you how drastically it's changed. In 74, it was overwhelmingly white, overwhelmingly conservative, overwhelmingly straight, overwhelmingly male. It's not like that anymore. And I know there are people who wish it was that way. It ain't going back. We're not going back to where we were. And I love that about the place that I've called home for, 40 someone. I'm a lawyer. I started out life as a lawyer, so I don't do math really well, but I know it's like almost 50 years.
It's a lot. It's a lot. And I want to take that opportunity to honestly just acknowledge you and your I hate to sound like a cliche, but truly your tireless effort into keeping South Florida diverse. Like that to me is probably the biggest I know everybody loves the beach. I'm not a beach person. If, we have listeners in Italy and the Philippines and Mongolia, like literally people all over the world. If you love the beach, come for the beach. I don't like sand. I think it's messy. I need somebody to vacuum the beach up for me. But what I love the most about South Florida is its diversity and its inclusivity, and that it's a safe space, you know? And I know that you have spearhead a lot of marketing campaigns for us to showcase that, that's important. Because it's not just important, you know, as an economic driver, but it's important because we're human beings, right?
Yes.
Because we're real feeling people, right?
Yes, and I don't understand why it's so hard for so many people to say, you know, we support human rights. That shouldn't be a difficult thing to get to, and that's a pretty generic statement. Yeah. We go a bit further at Visit Lauderdale. We have put out statements about, you know, how we recognize that people don't, you know, that travel transcends politics, but sometimes politics injects itself into travel. Mm-hmm. And we think as tourism professionals that we have a role to play in that conversation. We think we should be at the table suggesting that, look, you know, political leaders are going to do what they're going to do. But sometimes what they do has a negative impact, certainly a negative connotation to what we are here in Broward County. And we are not what you're hearing from Tallahassee's leaders. We are the exact opposite. And we go a long way to let people know that. It's one thing to say, oh yeah, we're inclusive and we're accessible and we're diverse. It's one thing to say it, but it's another thing to show it. And we actually rebranded to everyone under the sun as our motto. I don't even think it's a tagline. I actually call it a mantra these days. Yeah. So that people would know that not only do people from all over the world come here to visit, or people from everywhere under the sun and everyone under the sun, the people who live here are, as I said, literally everyone under the sun. And we embrace that. We celebrate people's differences because we recognize that at the end of the day, we're all humans. You know, we don't care who you love. We don't care how you identify. We don't care who you worship or what you worship or not at all. We don't care about any of that. We want you to come here and have an experience of your life with people who celebrate whatever you are. We don't care if it's men dressed up like women, who cares? You know, nobody here cares. And the message that people hear out of Florida is that, oh no, that's, you know, people do care about those things. And, you know, Florida's bad because, and look, there are places in Florida that are absolutely that. They embrace those hateful, prejudicial, bigoted comments and policies. We don't. We reject them 100, you know, we are 180 degrees from what people here in Tallahassee are hearing from Tallahassee. And we want people to know that.
Yeah, and I think the big thing is, you know, us embodying that ourselves, right, in our daily lives as well. I'm gonna push into the next question because you know I love this microphone, Julietta. Don't hate me, but Stacy, you've done so much, and you know, as a lot of our audience members see your long career and think, oh my God, how did she ever do all of that? How did she ever get there? How did she manage everything? So surely you had some limiting beliefs as you were coming up. What sort of limiting beliefs did you have to let go of to find the success that you have today?
Oh gosh, I still have limiting beliefs. I think women, for some reason, we never think, I mean, I never think I'm good enough. I look at my resume and I say, yes, that's a woman who's accomplished a great deal. But then when I look at me, I say, I haven't really I don't feel that I'm that resume, which is long and there's no question about it, but I don't feel that that's me, that I haven't really accomplished enough. So I'm not sure that it ever goes away. But, you know, when I ran for the State House in 96, which was the first time I'd ever run for office, and I won, I wasn't supposed to. People are like, well, why did you run? And as I said, I was a lawyer, and lawyers are, most lawyers are interested in public policy. I had my parents are New Deal Democrats from Philadelphia who carried that liberal philosophy into me and my sister, and I have thankfully, you know, injected into my children. So policy was always a thing. But I was honestly, I was really unhappy. I was unhappy, and I don't tell this, I guess I'm going to tell it publicly now, but I just was not a happy person. I did not feel fulfilled in my marriage. It was a different husband at the time.
Clarify.
I didn't feel that, as much as I loved being a mother, that it was enough for me. Although I will say that the best thing I've done is raise 2 healthy, tax-paying, responsible, liberal children. But it just wasn't enough. And I was searching for something. And I decided to throw my hat in the ring when everybody told me I was destined for failure. And I thought, this is my shot. And I was lucky. I shouldn't say that. Women always say they're lucky when they're successful. Men say that they're capable and smart. So there was a definite combination, but I busted my ass because I decided that it was time for me to do something for me. And most women don't. I don't know most women, but I know there are women who put off their dreams until their children are grown. I didn't want to wait 20 years for something that because I knew that if I was fulfilled, I was going to be a better mother. And I think that I've shown that to my children, that you can do everything, not everything at 100% all the time. Sometimes being a mother took second place to the job, especially when I had to travel to Tallahassee. Yeah. But they saw a mom who was happy and fulfilled, and as a result, they embraced. And it's funny because I carry a lot of guilt. Woman guilt, Jewish guilt, I say that when you push the baby out, guilt takes the place of the baby in the womb. But my kids don't remember me ever not being there. So
that's so encouraging. Thank you for saying that.
Women who are coming up who don't want to put their dreams on the back shelf until they're in their 50s. Most women don't become CEOs of companies till they're in their 50s because they put their, and I'm not in it. And if that's the path that any particular woman wants to take, that's fine. Have kids, don't have kids, work, don't work. You have to do what fulfills you. But I know I needed to do this, but I still have so much imposter syndrome. I mean, I feel like any given time of the day, someone's going to strip away the mask and go, oh, we knew there was nothing there. So I don't think it matters what I achieve. I feel like I'm still limiting and limited because I can't shut, this off.
But I think it's important for, anybody out there listening to know that you can have these beliefs, these doubts, and you can still be successful.
I think I'm trying to prove more to myself than to anybody out there. And I think that that's probably going to be the case for, the rest of whatever the third has to offer me.
You're doing it for you, but you're showing everybody else that it can be done.
My hope is that the next generation, the one behind me and the one behind that, of women has an easier time getting where they want to go. Wherever that is, with less limitations than my generation had, and then certainly my mom's generation had. I don't know that we're getting. They're not getting. We're not getting there fast enough for me. And I look at the conversation happening right now about Dianne Feinstein. She should resign. She has not been in at work for however many days. Well, neither's Mitch McConnell, but nobody's calling for Mitch McConnell to resign. There's just so much sexism and misogyny out there. That we have to continue to step up and speak out. Yep. Not everybody's going to like us. Oh, well. I got over that a long time ago.
All right. We got to move on. We got to get through these questions.
I'll short my answers. Also, I didn't know we could say the F word. I Graciela said the F word.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to figure out when I can weave that in.
Freedom of speech here. Freedom of speech.
Well, that's unusual. Florida, I'm not sure we have that anymore, but good for you.
So we're building a goddess library, and we'd like to know what book should we add to the library, a book that you think everyone should read and why?
That's the hardest question for me to answer because I don't read self-help books.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be, yeah.
I read so much stuff during the day, whether it's RFPs or really dry stuff, that I read bullshit fiction when I get home at night. That's just fun, and I can immerse myself in someone else's stuff. So I don't know that I do not have a book that would, I'm not, I read fiction and I read historical stuff. I'm a history major. So the stuff that I'm reading now is stuff I was forced to read back then, but I like it now and I didn't like it then. So I'm a big history buff. I truly believe that if we don't know our history, then we really are doomed to repeat it. And I just recently read a biography of Ulysses S. Grant, and I knew very little about him, and I was fascinated at how progressive he was as it related to race, for someone who was a president in the late 1860s and 1870s, and how much pushback there was on him. So, I don't know that that's something I would add to the Goddess Library, but I was fascinated by it and continue to quote him every now and then, because he had some pretty progressive quotes for 150 years ago.
Well, I will tell you, you're the second history major on the show just today. So
It's history day.
So that's hysterical. And I think everything that we read has, well, I shouldn't say it that broadly, but I think whatever you're passionate about reading has value. And I would absolutely add that to the Goddess Library, because it's not, self-help books it's a recent thing, right? Before self-help concept existed, what did we do? How did we learn? We told stories, and it is about history, right? And it's your history and our history as a country, and the history of the people before us, and the ancient history, and it's just stories, so whatever story is driving your growth is a great story, right? Like that's the important part.
I think that some of the books I would mention are probably banned in Florida.
Well, that's not a high bar. So there's a
Diary of Anne Frank, Fahrenheit 451.
That's a big long list. So one of the things that we always try and talk about, because sometimes when we hear folks that are like really, really successful, you're like, oh my gosh, I could never do that. How did they ever get there? But lately I've kind of been saying, for myself anyway, that just when you think you've made it, you didn't really make it, because there's more. There's always more. There's another corner. I feel like every time I feel like I've reached the summit of something, I'm like, oh wait, I could do that, and I could do that, and I take on new things. So, do you have like what's your next step? What is something that you've always wanted to do, or that you want to do next? That maybe those little limiting beliefs that we were talking about earlier have been kind of dragging you down. Tell what.
I think when you are my age, and I am 62, so you begin to think about what's the end, and I'm coming to the end of this particular journey in my life. But I know that there's, and when I say I'm less than a handful of years from retiring from this position, but I know that I worry that because old people in this country are so dismissed and made to feel irrelevant, that there's going to come a point in time when no one's going to care what Stacy Ritter has to say, and I that troubles me, because as I age, I realize that the stories I can tell maybe would help someone who's coming up behind me. So there is something next. And I don't think it's going to be public sector oriented. I've been in the public sector since 1996, which is like half a lifetime almost for me. But there is something next. And that's because I'm not ready for them to tell me that I'm to be put out to pasture. I'm not doing that. And I'm not going to age gracefully or quietly as I go through whatever is next, because I have something left to contribute. And I'm not sure, and that's not based on what my resume says, That's what's based on what's in here. I know I'm not ready. I'm sure that there are plenty of people out there who are ready for me to exit stage left, but there's a third act. There is a third act, and whether it's marketing, whether it's strategy, consulting. I took one of those personality tests once, and my top 5 strengths are all strategic. So whether it's strategizing, maybe it's running for office again. I don't know. Maybe somewhere along the way going back to Tallahassee a second time. Oh my God. So I'd be the worst kind of hellraiser, which would make me happy. And part of what I struggle with in this job is the inability to say everything I really want to say. We step up to the line. No other destination is as vocal as we are about policy. But I step up to the line and I cannot cross it. I won't do that to my commissioners. But there is something left. And what I've learned is that when the door opens, you better walk through it, because it probably won't stay open, and there probably won't be another one. So win, lose, or draw, take that initiative, because failure is an option, but not trying is never an option.
In a previous episode, we talked about regret and time passing and things like that. And sometimes I feel so desperate, like I need to hurry up and do this because time is going to pass, and before you know it, it'll all be gone. And but I love your energy, and I don't know about you, but I'm hearing speaker, I'm hearing a book, I'm hearing something very exciting. I don't know. Maybe you need to come on our retreat. We'll dig in.
Well, you didn't say like where it was or when it was, and people have to plan. I plan. I mean, the stuff that I get your emails, and the stuff that you do seems so attractive to me, but I always feel like I'm going to not fit in. Which is but I was like I love Kundalini yoga. It is hard to find Kundalini yoga, but
it's hard to do Kundalini yoga.
Well, try with a broken shoulder.
With a shoulder,
like yoga. But you put together and the way you empower women, I love that, and I think that's what's so special about what the two of you are doing here is that. Women need, men do business on the golf course and they all slap each other in the back and then they go to the 19th hole and they knock down a couple of martinis and then they shake hands and business is done. Women don't do business that way. And our friendships aren't created that way. And we don't give ourselves enough time to just sit around as women, because it is very likely that the woman who is sitting next to you in the office or at the grocery store or the nail salon has the same issues that you do. We just don't talk about them. I remember my mom, when I went through menopause, my mom said, "Oh, I never had a single symptom of menopause. I don't know what you're talking about." We never talked about it. We never talked about those things that we're all going to go through it. We have to talk about those things. It's the only way we can strengthen the community, in my opinion.
Listen, the reason, and thank you for noticing my events, and I will tell you that you fit in perfectly because I created these events because all of my clients would tell me the same thing. They would tell me that they felt lost or that they came, moved here from somewhere else and didn't really know anybody because they were so busy working. And then how do you meet people? They didn't want to go to a bar, that sort of a thing. But everybody's insecurities and everybody's just like mental health, the kids, the mom, the parents, the part of your life where you have to take care of your parents, right? Like everybody was telling me the same exact stories but everybody was isolated. None of my clients knew each other. And I'm like, y'all need to meet each other. Like we got to get in the same room. I always say that I think one of the biggest mistakes we've made just as a civilization is to put up houses and put up fences. I think that if we were to live in an open plan, right, like in teepees or in something where I can physically hear my neighbor, how much safer would we all be, right? You wouldn't have shaken babies because then you could go and you could hear your neighbor and be like, hey, I hear that you're really struggling right now. Give me your baby, right? Like even me as a mom of twins, I have my kids are almost 14 now. So for 14 years, I've been telling other moms, please call me at midnight, at 2 a.m. when you're crying and you're crying in the shower and you're like, I'm never going to be able to handle this. Trust me, call me. But of course, nobody does, right? Because everybody's like, oh, I don't want to bother anybody, right? Like that to me is the biggest bullshit line women say to each other is, you know, I was going to whatever, but I didn't want to bother. I didn't want to be a bother. Like, what the fuck? Like, we got to stop it, right? Because we are our saviors, you know, like every word that you say saves me. Every word that Julietta says saves me and pushes me forward, right? And, you know, the folks that come to my studio, it's literally every age. I have a girl who's like 29 and just discovering things about herself. And I have a woman who's 75 who imparts her knowledge, and it's a surprise every day, you know, because that's what community is. It's not one specific thing. It is diversity. And honestly, like that's the beauty of it, right? Like I don't want to hear just what my, you know, people like me want to say. I need to hear what everybody has to say because that's how you learn.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's how it's used to be, right? It used to be community, the longhouse, you know, like that's what we're trying to do.
You know, my daughter-in-law is pregnant. My first grandchild's due in August.
Yeah. Welcome to the group.
Oh yeah, girl. And I said to Crystal, I said, look, nobody told me how hard it is to have an infant. Yeah, it's hard, and you're going to get depressed. Everybody does. We don't talk about it. You're supposed to be this most joyful moment of your life, this little bundle that you've, you know, incubated for 9 months, and everything's supposed to be perfect. It's not going to be perfect. I'm closer to you than in distance than your mom is. If you feel like you cannot handle it, call me. I will drop everything because it's going to happen to you. We don't talk about that. It's like postpartum depression is some kind of syndrome that, you know, we all go through it. We all go through all of these things. Yeah. And we're 50% of the population. We don't talk about it. You know, they talk about their erectile dysfunction issues and their Viagra issues amongst themselves. You know, they're probably not ED. None of them have ED ever. They're also longer, stronger, wider, you know, than anybody else. But we are not those people. We talk our problems out, and we need safe spaces to be able to do that, where we're not judged, where we're not criticized, where we're not felt less than, because we are feeling whatever it is we're feeling. And yet women somehow feel like we have to be perfect at everything all the time. We are human beings.
That's it. I might have to go radical and host like a pajama night where you have to come with no makeup, no bra, no nothing. And just get over it.
You see me, no makeup, no bra, no shirt, no hair.
All for business, people. That was all business.
That's right. All for business.
This has been an amazing show. And the last thing we want to know is what special gift, what special thought would you like to leave with our audience today?
Oh gosh, you guys ask hard questions. I think what I'd like people to know, or my opinion, I don't know everything. I know most things, but not everything. It's okay to be who you are. It's just okay. And whoever you are is important. And, you know, I tried to be something else for my first husband. I tried to be something else for this person. I've tried to be something else for this boss. I just am who I am. And again, not everybody's gonna like it, but that's how I think we should come to the table. We just have to be who we are and be accepted for that.
You're 100%. That's it. And that really is the focus of what we're talking about here. So you have summed up this experience so perfectly, because, you know, the freedom, which is what everybody craves, the freedom is in the authenticity. And the authenticity, I mean, that's the warm part, right? Where you get to just be yourself without worrying about anything else. You know, as I was growing up, I never realized like what a conscious effort it takes. And to this day, of course, right? Like, don't think I didn't take time to put my makeup on and put the right earring in. Is this the right one or is this the right one? Right? Like I'm still in it, but at least I'm old enough to see it. And man, if we could take this, if we could impart this, like I look at my kids all the time and I'm like trying so hard to like tell them. And then I have to remember that it's not telling them, it's showing them. So I have to be the thing that I wish for them to be, you know? And the more we do that for ourselves, the better we'll feel, the more it allows other women to do and feel the same. So you nailed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. It was fun.
Thank you, Stacy, for being on the show and making time for us in your busy, busy day. We appreciate it so much. And thank you to our audience for listening. It's a wrap, everyone.
Great day, guys.